Welcome to another Days AF Trains video featuring American Flyer trains by A.C. Gilbert, rebuilt and maintained by engineering practices, factory specifications and standards, and underpinned by lessons learned from literature, personal experience, collaboration, and applied knowledge to update and advance the skill of the craft. The focus of this project is the acquisition of a steam locomotive, Union Pacific freight train to complement my Union Pacific passenger train. This is the 49600 Union Pacific set, the Pony Express by Lionel American Flyer, the PAPA diesels 8106 and 8107, followed by the passenger coaches 8904 through 8907. The Pony Express. I acquired a 336-484 Northern as the steam locomotive for this train. I was fortunate to work with a trusted vendor partner, and I hope you have one too as part of your People, Process, and Technology trilogy to help you with your American Flyer. This vendor partner located and then provided at a reasonable cost this locomotive that met my requirements. It must be operative and rebuildable, and certainly this one is. I've already operated it on my layout. It did not meet my perfect specifications, but it was obvious it was going to run. It needed to be good to very good cosmetic, electrical, and mechanical condition. I accepted the chips of paint that are on here occasionally, but overall I was very pleased with it, especially considering its age. It must have the Union Pacific Herald on the tender, and certainly this one does. This one is a Type 2, and that was probably the key specification. It must have a large motor, that is the 3/4 inch field and armature. It must have a knuckle coupler, not a link, and it must have the plug jack panel. Yes, these were made with a plug jack panel, and even though I'm going to have to replace part of it, it is made with one. To identify possible freight rolling stock, I conducted a comprehensive line-by-line search for Union Pacific road name in the 2021 edition of Greenberg's American Flyer Pocket Price Guide, Sections 1, which was Gilbert production, and Section 2, which was Lionel production. Then, to locate possible candidates for purchase, I utilized online merchant, web-based, and e-based resources. From a wide variety of Union Pacific road names, I selected 8 cars that include 2 Gilbert American Flyer, 1 Truly Vintage, 5 American Flyer by Lionel, and 1 S Helper car, which I have been very impressed with, its performance and adaptability to the other cars. I was fortunate to work with trusted vendor partners to acquire these cars in very good, like new to excellent, and even new, never opened, sealed box containers. More on these pieces later in the video series. This video series kicks off with a rebuild of the 484-336 Union Pacific American Flyer Northern large motor that, according to Doyle, is known as a Type 2. A large motor, of course, as mentioned before, is identified by the 3/4 inch field and the 3/4 inch wrap in the armature. The Northern bore this number from 53 to 57 in the A.C. Gilbert inventory, and during this time the reverse unit and the air chime whistle, if that's what you want to call it, I call it more like an air chime buzzer, were mounted in the die-cast tender. Inside the locomotive boiler is an operating headlight and a smoke and choo-choo unit that have been demonstrated to be operative. The tender is decorated, as per my specifications, with a white Union Pacific shield herald and a sans serif American Flyer lettering that I'm in the process of converting over to Union Pacific, utilizing dry rubs that I got through Portline Hobby. Now, I've already blacked out American Flyer in anticipation or preparation for putting this dry rub Union Pacific on the tender. Therefore, all the cars, including the tender, in this train will be clearly identified as Union Pacific. Other paint features include the white stripe painted on the edge of the running boards. The tender has a knuckle coupler at the rear. Now this one's already broken off, but I'm going to have to replace it. And it was equipped with die-cast frame 6-wheel trucks. However, as you probably well know, it became their practice to replace that center axle with these swipe or pressure springs. And each was replaced, that center axle, with this electrical contact. Now let's go over the assessment of this unit. First, the tender. As mentioned, the rear knuckle coupler was already broken when I received it in shipping, and that's going to be replaced with a reproduction. It broke at the shank. I've already blacked out American Flyer on the tender. I'm going to replace that with large block lettering Union Pacific available through port lines. I'm going to disassemble and clean and polish the reverse unit to include the pawl, the drum, the lift, and the fingers. I'm going to have to straighten out and adjust the coupler bar. As you've seen in my previous videos with common hidden problems, this is certainly one, maybe not this particular one, but it can cause a lot of headaches if there is a slight tendency for this bar not to be in perfect draft with the locomotive, and therefore lifting gently the tender off the tracks, even though it's hard to see with the naked eye. I'm going to disconnect the speaker completely. As you can see, it's damaged. And I'm not going to replace it at this time. I might replace it in the future, but not right now. But one thing I am going to do is just disable it electronically, because I don't want any popping sound that is kind of common when you have these speakers and you have the slide contacts. I'm going to remove, wash, clean, polish the shoe slide contacts as per my standard practice. Wheels and axles. As you can see, these wheels and axles are pretty dirty. Notice the amount of carbon buildup on these axles. That's probably the thickest I've ever seen it. And of course, I'll wash the trucks and the chassis and polish and adjust all the contact springs, as well as adjusting their tension. In the initial assessment of the boiler part of the locomotive, the only thing that was noticed is that the jack panel is fractured right here on the left side. I've already got a jack panel prepared. It is a 5-port, you might say, 5-wire jack panel, 4 plugs here and 1 wire passing through freely up here, and I've already identified one in my parts department that is the correct size to replace it. The characteristics of the locomotive's boiler are: it is 4-piece, 2 here, steam chest and pilot, the boiler front, and then the main structure of the boiler. The metal bell is on top of the boiler, front and center. It is suspended, and it was replaced by the previous owner. It has a slanted, it has cast-on painted marker lights, which are here. It has a slanted metal whistle that is forward of the sand dome. That is present right there. The boiler top metal generator is left of center line and forward of the cab unit, and that is right there. That's the generator. It's intact. It has a wide variety of wire handrails, some of which I've already taken off, especially as you can see in the back here on the paper from the tender, but it has a wide range. It has the front to pilot. It has several on the pilot to cab, edges of the cab roost, rear of the cab, front center of tender, rear corners of the tender, 2 sides of the tender, 2 rear of the tender, and 2 above the handrails, above the ladders. It has the sheet metal number boards. Now they're both intact and very firm. I think what I'm going to do, because I've already ordered them, is I'm going to remove the previous numbers and replace them. I've already got rub-ons from Portline Hobbies to make those a little bit more distinctive. It has the channel type crosshead guides, which are here, which I really like. I think they give a lot of strength and support to the crosshead guide. It has two-piece riveted drive rod and piston and the side linkages, and it has the four-piece riveted eccentric rod assembly. So all this is I've dealt with before in rebuilding these Northerns. It's very easy to handle, and it cleans well, and it's just very, very strong. But you can't overhandle it. It has white tires. It has pull mores on the rear, and I've inspected those. I think they're going to be very serviceable and not need replacement. The drawbar in the rear here is attached to the spreader bar. It too is very strong. I find these sometimes either missing, fractured, or loose, but this one is very strong. And that's the characteristics. So that kicks off the rebuild of the locomotive that will be used for a Union Pacific exclusive freight train. Thanks for watching Dave's American Flyer Trains.